the past must be let go of. At times stuff happens in our lives that can really make an impact on us psychologically. Because of that, we drag it around. And we're in this case, we're talking about stuff that was very negative. So you end up dragging it around psychologically, and it's like an anchor weighing you down. In a way, it's just holding you back. It's keeping you stuck in the dead past. And this is something that through spiritual texts we could also learn, that it was not smart for humanity, for human beings individually, to let the past control their minds. So ultimately we're going to have to learn the art of letting go of the past. Now, no matter what has happened to you, I know at times it may not be as simple, especially if it was a very traumatic thing that has occurred to you. It keeps haunting your mind, it keeps making you feel bad whenever it comes up. But again, somehow we have to let go. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this was because not too long ago I spoke to someone whose husband committed suicide. And he was a person that, as far as I know, was very into personal development, studying very similar stuff that I'm talking about through my channel. Other famous authors out there and coaches he would probably listen to. There's all kinds of examples I could talk about, but it's not really about these coaches. The main point being that in this case, from what I was told about the situation, was that he was also dealing with certain childhood traumas. Now, of course, I do not know the extent of his suffering, so I can also not say and make the statement that, oh, if he would just have taken my advice, he would not have taken his own life. No, that's not really the point of this video. It's more about considering, there's so many people suffering out there in silence. He was one of them. He didn't apparently showcase this to the world. He was a fitness coach as well, helping people to lose weight. So as far as I knew as well, from what I've seen online of his work, I also assumed like, oh yeah, he seemed totally fine. Even up to the day he took his own life. He posted some videos here and there and he just seemed totally fine. But his wife, which was also actually an old classmate of mine from way back in my teenage years, and she told me that, yeah, he was really good at keeping up this kind of facade, or at least making it seem like everything was around to the outside world, but in private at home, it was clear as day to me that he was suffering a lot. He was depressed, this and that. There was all kinds of stuff going on with him psychologically, apparently, that ultimately, caused him to take his own life, which is very, very sad. And I mean, anybody that's followed my channel knows that I have personal experience on this, because my mother also took her own life. And what makes it even more coincidental in the big scheme of things is, get this guy and his wife, which was my old classmate, they both live in the same town I was raised in. This guy took his life on February 7th of this year, and my mom took her life on February 7th in 2008 in the same village. So when I heard that, I was like, this is such a strange coincidence in a way, but at the same time I realized, of course, worldwide there's so many people taking their own lives every day. So the act of suicide itself is not really necessarily something so unique to my mom or anything, but to have someone that you've known from your past also have someone taking their own life on the exact same date in the exact same town, although it's a different year, it was kind of strange. But again, it really made me think about that whole event, where I was like, again, based on what I was told, he had a lot of issues with his past, the traumatic events in his childhood. And yeah, I don't know the exact extent to what it was all about. I didn't really ask, because I don't know if that was really, a decent thing for me to do, to be probing into that matter, because it's not really my business, and there's also nothing I can really do for them anyway. But just knowing that made me realize it's kind of the same as how it went with my mother back in 2008 and leading up to her suicide, her death day. You see, when the past starts, the past can be a very strange thing. Let me put it differently first. With my mom, what really made it look like to me at least, was that she really felt like the past was better than her present life. So in that moment of time, it literally felt like and seemed like she had memories of the past where her life seemed way better compared to what it was then, and because of that she felt worse and worse, and then lost all motivation and strength to keep on going, and she decided to take her own life. In the case with this other man earlier this year, it was due to childhood trauma. So it's a different dynamic there psychologically, but both cases have to do with something that happened maybe years in the past and still haunting them, still dragging us all over the place psychologically, emotionally. If we don't get a handle on this, then the odds of suicide, as morbid as it sounds, they do go up. I've had times in my life, if I'm gonna be really honest with you, where I even felt like, should I take my own life? Because of bad things that happened in my past. But something inside of me always made me feel that it's not really necessary, it's not the only way out. Even though I'm suffering, I could sense at the same time it's not the only way out. And I can thank God for that, because it has something to do with my highly, maybe this sounds a little arrogant or weird, but I just know I tend to be more spiritually aware than most people, and that has been something that has been going on throughout my entire life in general. So in the East they would say, oh, that's because of past lives I've lived. I've prepared myself somehow in previous lifetimes on spiritual studies, and now I'm just going on into higher and higher levels of awareness, which is cool, and you can do the same, and that's the point of the message. Ultimately everyone can do this, and when you do that, you also notice that suicide is no longer really needed, even though you've been suffering or are still suffering. Because the suffering, again, this is why they say in Eastern spirituality that attachment must go. Being stuck in the past mentally, letting the past haunt your mind, is in a way being attached to this temporary persona that you are. Because the past has everything to do with your personality on Earth, on what you have been going through specifically in this very journey of yours on planet Earth. And there may be absolutely horrible things that have happened to us, but ultimately if we realize that we are a soul, that the soul that we really are is a child of God, then we can go beyond this temporary personality that we are, and therefore also beyond the actual traumas that have all piled up because of this physical journey itself. This is very, as far as I see it, a deep understanding of your own nature in order to bypass the traumas that otherwise would hold you back. I've had to do this myself. That is why I'm talking about it, because I've had stuff in my life happen from the moment I was born, actually, that really left a scar on my mind psychologically, and they would say I would suffer from this the rest of my life for certain things. They would never go away. Well, that didn't seem very hopeful. Then it's like, okay, I just gotta live with the trauma. Sometimes I feel terrible at the past. Oh, I just gotta live with it. That's how I tried to, go through this for many years of my own life. And with its ups and downs, I would sometimes feel like, why shouldn't I just give up? But again, as I said, there was this voice inside me guiding me through it as well, which ultimately made me realize in this moment of time, in this part of my journey here on Earth, is that yes, I can go beyond all the traumas itself finally, and just embrace and perceive the unity that I shared with the universe, with God, as a soul. So this means that you no longer identify yourself as just the ego, as just this physical human being, and with its identity that was given to you by your parents and then goes through all these things very specifically on the physical realm that is constantly bombarding your consciousness with good and bad ideas and feelings and emotions and thoughts. So letting go of the past really ultimately becomes a matter, as far as I see it, of, again, awaking spiritually to your true nature. Because if you know your oneness with the whole universe, then you know that this temporary physical journey, even though it might be terrible, because it's temporary, it doesn't have to really drag you down nearly as much as it used to. Then you realize that, the things that have happened to me, that have been done by other people, or that I've done, or whatever it is that traumatizes you for some reason, you realize, okay, that is all part of this physical realm only. That is part of this physical identity that's going through it. Yet so basically the soul is going through it, but yet the soul is never touched. This is one of those beautiful revelations in the Bhagavad Gita from Hinduism, is that they also mention there that the soul can never be touched. The real you can never be touched. The real true being that you are inhabiting the body can never be touched by anything physically. It can never be hurt. It can never be killed by anyone. even though we might think so. And that, they say that is due to ignorance. That is due to believing in the illusion of physicality only. And if you really start to contemplate this for yourself, that no matter what has happened to you, if you can separate it in your consciousness as being, this has occurred to me physically by other physical beings through other physical events. It is all tied to this physical persona identity that I temporarily have. But now I want to look and search for the true me, the true self that resides beyond this whole facade, the universal cosmic self, the soul. If you start to lay hold of that essence within you, then you can separate the two. And then traumas can actually be overcome through pure spiritual awareness and power. Then God steps in and helps you and lifts you out of this darkness in which you have fallen. Now, it is something that I feel like my mom could have benefited from. I also feel like this man that took his own life could have benefited from it. But I'm not saying that them knowing this would have stopped them from taking their own life. I don't know. Because it is ultimately in their hand. It's their choice. I mean, people are free to do what they want to do. It's such a sad thing for the people left behind. This is true. He also left behind 3 young children. Very young children, not even 10 years old. All 3 of them are below the age of 10. They all have to deal with this now. Losing their father tragically in this manner. He just went up and left the house and he never came back. That's the story of the end of his life. But yet, if he had known the unity that he shared with God behind the traumatic events of his physical self, then I know he probably would have found more strength to keep on going. And that's always sad to realize, to consider. Like, do people really want to take their own life if they know the unity they share with God? The only thing that might happen if you've discovered your unity with God is that perhaps in a way you're almost like, I can't wait to leave this physical realm, because sometimes I do feel that way. And it might sound morbid to people if I say that, but it's true. I've seen and experienced so many wonderful things non-physically in other dimensions to which the soul can pass, that I too can agree, well, they are absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. So it's almost like I can't wait to go there permanently, but I know for now I've still got a job to do while I'm physically here. I mean, making these videos is what I see as my main job now. To at least leave these messages behind for humanity, so that they might inspire or support someone else out there on their own journey to perhaps look at their own life and existence in a different way that might help them out. Who knows? These videos will go on and on until YouTube deletes them themselves or the whole website vanishes. But the odds of that happening might still be very, very long time away, though. So it's not something to worry about, I'd say, but ultimately I consider it a fun thing as well to just talk about these ideas from a spiritual perspective, so that hopefully, it might serve some purpose for someone else out there. But ultimately the point of the video was that the past must be let go of, and the main way of doing that, I'd suggest these days, is to really work on discovering your true self, the true nature of yourself, spiritually speaking. To really understand that you are an eternal being simply going through temporary experiences, physically speaking, and therefore they don't have to drag you down nearly as much as they used to. Because the more serious you take the physical things that occur along this journey, the more they also have the ability to drag you down. Really think about that. The more serious you take all these events from the past that have hurt you for whatever reason, the more they're holding a grasp over you. But the more you can learn to focus your mind towards God, seek the unity that is hidden behind all of creation, the more that grasp of the past is being loosened, because your whole attention and consciousness focus somewhere else. And as they say, what you focus upon expands. So the more you focus on the past, and especially what you consider negative, the more it starts to affect you and drag you down and make you feel bad. But the more you learn to focus your mind on God, or the unity, or whatever term you want to use, on spirituality, on actually finding this true nature behind physicality itself, the more your consciousness will expand in that direction, because that is where your attention lies. Really think about it. It is all in our hands. So many people when they take their life, do it in a state of complete chaos. They're emotionally, mentally, completely chaotic. I've seen how this went with my mom, and this is the same how it went with this guy that took his own life a couple months ago as well. From what I was told, I mean, he was also not in the right state of mind in that moment of time. You see, everything becomes such an intense negative pull within themselves because of the past dragging them down, that everything just goes off track. And if we could have stopped, if they could have stopped and waited just one more day while contemplating the true unity of life, then perhaps they wouldn't have done it. Because I honestly don't think he wanted to hurt his family, but he did, of course. With this act of taking his own life, he hurt his children. Now they gotta live on the rest of their life without their father, which is very sad from such a young age. But again, it's because he was in a very chaotic state of mind. He no longer was capable to think critically and clearly. But yet all of this can, in potential, be avoided if we truly work on ourselves every day. We take the time to meditate, to really perceive and feel the unity behind all of creation through meditation. And then it will soften the blows of life. It will take away the sting of certain events as they occur, physically speaking. And we become true children of God, being guided by the wisdom of God, the compassion and peace of God, no matter what has happened to us. That is ultimately the true power that lies in store for you if you learn to awaken yourself from the dream of life, which means you awaken yourself from this dream that you're just this physical human being, this physical identity that you were given, where you completely identify in, for example, in my case, with being a man, a certain age, certain name. You know, these are all experiences that I'm having, that my consciousness is having. But once this body drops into the grave, that whole identity that people now know me as is gone. I go on with my own soul, through other journeys, through other dimensions. It goes on and on. I'll keep growing towards unity with God, and it will be the same for you, whether you realize that or not. It is ultimately the true journey of every soul that is currently going through this physical realm. I hope you'll take this message to heart and consider it for yourself, or if you know someone that is suffering from past traumas too, and that are into spirituality, that perhaps this message could give them a different view on how to perhaps go about it for themselves. And if so, well, that would be very awesome to share, I guess. I hope so. Anyways, that's all I want to share with you today through this video, and I hope you have a great day, guys. If you are feeling bad like this person did, where you really are at the end of your ropes, you really feel like you should make an end to it all, I hope you understand that in a way you want to make an end to it all because you hope to find peace through that act. But the peace of God is accessible right here and now, even when you're alive, in the middle of suffering. And ultimately, if you can find it in the middle of your suffering, then true spiritual evolution has occurred within your very being. Then something very wonderful has happened. You actually have grown and learned, which is much more valuable than to just give up entirely. That's all I wanted to say about it.